It is July the 15th, 2019. Sandy and Henry Halem are interviewing Terry Hynde. Today we are at the Kent Historical Society. All right, Terry, where did you grow up and what period, when?
I was born in Akron, South Akron, right off of Russell Avenue. It used to be called South Street, right down from the main drag there. And the house is gone now because they built the expressway through there in 1960, and they took the house and moved it. Anyway, I left that around 7 or 8 years old. My parents bought their first house, a little Cape Cod in Cuyahoga Falls. We lived there for a while. My dad worked in Cleveland, so we moved up to Cleveland for 3 years up till about 1958. Then moved to Stabler Road in Akron, which is right next to the Armory on North Hawkins. That's where I really started getting into music and everything like that. And then from there, my sister and I left.
What year did you, how old were you when you left?
Well, it was 65. I must have been 47, 57, 67, 18.
And where did you go?
Kent State University.
In
1965.
In 1965, you were a freshman.
Yes.
Cool. And what were you, what did you know about Kent and have as an image before you got here?
Absolutely nothing, except that my friends in high school would sneak an ID and go to the deck. And the only thing I ever heard was the deck. They never went anywhere else. For some reason, I don't know why.
Okay, so you get here in 1965. What was your impression both of Kent State and the city at that time?
Well, Kent State was just a college. And the times they were a-changing. You know, people were starting to get different attitudes. The hippies were coming in. You know, I saw my first hippie on campus and I couldn't believe it. And I go, hippie? It's not hippie, it's hipster. Why do you people keep saying it wrong? And I'm coming from like 55 New York City, you know. Anyway, then I started hitting some of the clubs downtown.
Were you playing music?
Well, in 1968, I was in a band called Sugar and Spice. It was a black band with white backup singers. And we played at the Fifth Quarter, which was Joe Shannon's first club. And of course, then I would start hitting some of the other clubs.
And where was the Fifth Quarter?
The Fifth Quarter it turned into Filthy McNasty's.
So that's DePeyster?
Yes, on DePeyster, right across from the Record Courier building.
And where was the deck?
The deck was below the Kent Ellis Hotel. It was that thing where you went down underneath like that.
There were people living at the Kent Ellis Hotel.
Yes, there were. And I knew many of them. That place was a zoo.
So you come down. What are you studying in school?
I was studying painting. You know, something I could really make a lot of money at. I thought I'd go in and, you know, I got the stars in my eyes with Franz Klein and Robert Motherwell and all this stuff, and I was a complete failure. But, you know, I said, so what? It kept me out of Vietnam.
And so here you are, it's 1968, and you're in this band.
Yes, and it was really fun. It was really fun. And
Where did you meet this group to get into this band?
Wow.
I mean, were there kids from school you met?
Not from Kent. They were just from Akron mostly. I don't know how it all fell together. And we did all soul music. Sam and Dave, James Brown, that sort of stuff. And it went over pretty well in Kent here at the time because of the times.
And it was an integrated mixed band.
Yeah. Yeah. We never had too much trouble except when we went a little south. down in southern Ohio, they weren't real happy about the. And I remember this is '68, so the feelings were a little bit different than they are now. Or wait a minute, no, they're not. They're exactly the same.
Right. So you're doing this, you're studying at Kent, you're playing this band at night. When, in '68, what was your feeling of the bar scene downtown and the music scene?
Well, not much was going on in '68. There were some people playing in the Cove, and I'm not even sure. Yeah, probably JB's too. Richard Underwood. You know Rich? Oh, you have to know Rich. You got to get him in this chair.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, he had a band called Monopoly that's still together. It was as old as our band, but they did covers. And did it very well too. But anyway, they played they had a band called The Sticks, and they played downtown, and Bobby Goldthwait was playing around, and the Blind Owl was happening. Do you remember the Blind Owl?
That was located where?
On Peister Street, sort of behind the Kent Ellis Hotel.
Okay.
It was a little building back in there. And people like Jose Feliciano and Buffy St. Marie and people like that were doing the Blind Owl at the time.
Really?
Yeah, oh yeah. Oh yeah, it was really kind of a cool scene. And then the Sugar and Spice Band broke up, and I was kind of a free agent, and some of those guys got back together and formed a band that we played at the Hi-Hat Lounge on Howard Street, which was one of the coolest things that's ever happened to me. In that totally black neighborhood that was still civil at the time. Everybody was cool. And I was with a band called Eugene Sharpie and the G-Clefs, featuring the Elevations and Cinnamon and Spice. And Cinnamon and Spice was Sugar and Spice reincarnated into this band. And there were 11 pieces in the band with one white person. You might guess who that could be.
Yeah.
Anyway, but I was the sax player. The Hi-Hat Lounge had been there forever. Charlie Parker played there. Dizzy Gillespie played there. This was the club that Jazz Cats came in and went through. So that was really cool playing there. I know I was playing there in '69 because I missed Woodstock, because I had a gig that night at the Hi-Hat.
Now you're playing in an integrated band, and you're playing also in Kent. Were the audiences also integrated, or was it mostly student, or what was the
It was
audience
not
like?
integrated in Kent.
Right.
We hardly saw any black people come to hear the band. And at the Hi-Hat Lounge, it was the opposite. Every once in a while, a white person would come in. And my dad was concerned about it, and he knew one of the higher-ups in the Akron Police Department who was black. And he called this guy up and said, "Listen, man, my son's playing at the Hi-Hat. I mean, is this going to be cool?" And he says he's a musician. He says, "Yeah, sax player." He goes, "He'll be fine. Don't worry about it." And this was the kind of place the manager wore a 22. I mean, it wasn't exactly a... But anyway, so after that, I'll just continue on with the story because I am. I go to Blossom Music Center to see Janis Joplin. And I'm on the hill, and this girl I knew from high school is walking down with this guy. And they come walking down, and she goes, "I want to introduce you to my boyfriend, Bob Kidney. And he's trying to maybe get a band together. Would you be interested in playing saxophone?" And I said, "Sure," because this other thing downtown was breaking up and everything. Oh, by the way, in that band, we had the organ player was James Ingram.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know who James Ingram is?
Yeah, sure.
Right, and he didn't sing. All he did is play organ. It's like insane. And he turns out to be one of the great singers,
Yeah.
But anyway, so that was the beginning of me playing with the numbers band.
And what year was that?
That had to be in '69.
In the summer.
Yes, in the
So
summer.
in the summer of '69, you guys started playing,
We started rehearsing.
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 Yeah, your 50th is not
Not next year.
Yeah.
And this is something a lot of people don't know. Our first gig in Kent was at JB's Down. Okay, we played there one night, and Bojack said, "You guys no good for shit. Get out. You're not coming back." Okay, whatever. And Petrie owned the Cove next door. And he said, "Hey, come on down here and give it a try." Well, you know, the scene was ripe for something new, some new kind of music. And the music we played wasn't new, but it was blues, and it was new to all the college kids and stuff. They were going, "Hey, this is kind of cool, you know, Dust My Broom, and hey, all these cool blues tunes." And the first night we played at the Cove, it was like 30 people. And the next time we played, it was 40 people. And within 6 months or so, there were lines outside to get in. Bojack was beside himself. "Dudes, come back!" Play. Nah, Joe, you blew it. But anyway, so, and you know, I was a rich hippie back in those days because we were making as much as $50 a night. I know, which is what the people make now.
Each?
Each.
Wow.
And we were playing 4 nights. I was making $200 a week in 1970, 71. And I was on top of the world.
And you were still going to Kent State?
I stopped in 1970.
Okay.
Okay, that put a
That's-
dent in, that's all connected in there. I took some classes off campus, like with Stutter.
You know who that is? Yeah, the guy that, he
Prince-
sang.
Prince-
He sang.
Yeah, he didn't stutter when he sang, but he stuttered all the time. Oh, God, why is it? I can't remember.
I forgot.
Well, that's okay.
It'll
He
come.
studied with Joseph Albers. I mean, the guy was a real expert in color theory, really knew his stuff. But we'd have some classes off campus and stuff like that. And the band was taken off, and I am 1/4 short of having my degree. But I went like, what do I need a degree for? I'm making $200 a week. I'm getting plenty of chicks. I mean, you know, you're in a band. I mean, that just goes along with the territory. And I'm getting high every night and having a great time. I don't, you know, need a degree, so I never did finish and get my degree.
Now, name the original members of the band and what they played, if you remember.
I remember. The original band had a guy named Greg Colbert on bass, Tim Hudson on drums. Bob Kidney and I, and a Hank Smith played guitar. That was the original Numbers band.
Not the other kidney, just Bob.
No, right, the other didn't come in until later.
Okay. And that was the original group.
Yes.
Cool. And so here you are. It's 1969-70. How aware are you of the political things that are going on at all?
Totally aware. In fact, I was in every situation there. The only time I missed the Friday night, that Friday night downtown. I don't remember what I was doing. Maybe I had a gig in Akron or something. But I
So
missed.
you were not playing the night of the May 1st when it started?
No, I was there May 1st, May 2nd, and May 4th.
Okay.
And I'll tell you the story. I don't know if you want to use it. You're probably going to have to do some editing anyway. But I was living at College Towers at the time. And I was with a buddy, and he had just gotten a nice big bag of dope. And we decided to clean it. And I knew there was something happening on campus at noon, and I wanted to get done with my job and get up there. And we had all these sticks and stuff, and we were just smoking it like crazy. What the heck, you know? And I said, hey man, I got to get going. I'm going to go up to campus. And so I had to come up between the dorms. There were a dorm on each side. There was a road that went up there. And near the end of the thing, they were doing construction, and there was this big pile of dirt at the end. And I'm walking between these buildings, and all the tear gas is filtering down between the buildings and hitting me right in the face. And I scramble up this hill, and I look out the scene, and there's the whole scene of everybody. And at the time, there were some tennis courts right down from the shootings. They were across the street there. And so I scramble up, I'm high as hell. My eyes are, I'm crying from the tear gas, and I have my hands in the fence like this, and I'm looking up there, and they start shooting.
Wow.
And I knew enough about guns and whatnot that I knew that they were shooting real bullets at people. So I got down low real fast. I got right down to the bottom of the fence, and I was looking up like this. And they stopped and went and backed off the scene. And then there were, the people laying around and stuff. And I go up and I walk right by Jeffrey Miller. And, it would have been traumatic for anybody at any time. And here I am higher than a kite. And I see this stuff, and it was unbelievable. I could not believe it. And I lingered around there for a little bit, and I said, I got to get out of here. Where's something familiar to me? Oh, the Hub. I'll go to the Hub.
The Hub was?
That was the Ritchie building. That was where everybody hung out at the time. And so I walked around back down. There's some steps that went down. Then there's some other tennis courts by one of the dorms there. And I'm walking down these steps, and I look over, and there are these two students playing tennis. The girl has a little tutu on, the other guy, and they're playing tennis. And I had just come from this horrific scene, and I see this, and it doesn't compute. It's going like, how can this be? This is insane. And I got to the Hub, and I grabbed the telephone. I said, I got to call my parents and stuff, and all the lines were dead. They had cut every line. So if you want to ask me some questions from there.
Yeah, you were in Oscar Ritchie Hall, which is what it is now.
Yeah.
What was the scene at that point? Did people know the shootings had happened?
Not back where I went, because nobody went there. I went there because it was a safe place to me. It's someplace I knew because I was there every day. But no, nobody was there really. They had all dispersed out, or I didn't really see what happened when Glenn came in to calm everybody down.
Glenn Frank.
Glenn Frank. I heard part of it because he was using a megaphone. I heard part of it, but they all stayed there. The students were there, and I was around into the Hub at that time.
How much longer did you remain on the campus? Because they cleared it.
Yeah, I don't remember.
You were on College Towers though, so you didn't have far.
I probably went back to College Towers after that. And then 2 days after that, or 3 days after that, there was a big rally in Washington, okay, with Spock and Fonda and all those people. And me and a bunch of people from College Towers decided to go down there. And they gave us an armband that said Kent State on it. And if you had an armband with a Kent State on it, you were gold. You could go anywhere because you were like a celebrity because of what happened. And I had this scene. I decided to climb up on the scaffolding where they had the TV cameras and stuff like that. And I was about from here to the driveway from the stage. And there on the end of the stage is Jane Fonda. And I'm on the scaffolding looking up all by myself, and she's looking over and going, and I'm going, and that was my big deal with Jane Fonda. That was as far as that went, but that was kind of fun. And we stayed down there for about a week.
Oh, really?
Yeah. We were staying at somebody's house. They had a house on the Potomac, a rich sort of thing. And we were all staying there, and then eventually filtered back to Kent. And of course, the campus was closed. And, you know, I'd go downtown to have some beer, and getting back to College Towers without cutting across campus was not easy. So I'd sneak across campus, and I got caught a couple of times.
There were security people.
Oh, yeah, the police. Oh, yeah, they picked me right up, put me in the car, and took me to the Kent police station at the time. And nothing ever happened. They took my name and all that kind of stuff.
Well, College Towers, for people who may not understand, is right literally at the end.
Yeah, it almost abuts campus.
It's almost like a dorm
Yeah, exactly.
extension,
Exactly.
you know. So this week or so goes by, and you're staying here in Kent. What was happening at that point with your playing? Was anybody playing in Kent? Were the bars empty?
Well,
What
we
was it like?
just started that year. That was the year we
That was
started.
the official beginning.
That was the official beginning, and it was a little bit after May 4th, and I can't remember if Bob went, no, it might have been, it might have been in June or July we started down at the Cove, but things were still very uptight. I mean, you know, the citizens in Kent were driving around with shotguns in their cars. They were scared to death. They thought the students were, you know, and nobody was like that, but the population didn't know.
Right.
And I remember playing down in the Cove and one night, and a riot squad came down with the whole thing on, and they told everybody to get out. Why, I do not know. I don't know what the purpose of the thing was, but they came down, told everybody. Probably pot.
Yeah, but they just hassled you and then you were able to go.
Yeah.
Nobody would
Yeah.
know what to mean. Were there people coming down to the bars on as it used to be? I guess what I'm asking is, how did it change after May 4th? Did you feel any difference in the audiences?
That's really hard to answer.
Were you still having people packing the Cove?
Well, what happened was that there was like an upsurgence of art at the time, right after that. Places opened up, there were bands everywhere. Good Company was above us, above the Cove, and they packed the place every night. And there were all those little stores by Walters and people, the Pinball Palace, places like that. In fact, here's something that you might want to look into. I don't know how you get along with the Kent Police now, but at that time, they had, across the street from JB's and the Cove and everything, they had cameras, and they would go on top of the buildings across the street and take pictures of all the kids. Okay, and the reason I know this is because a friend of mine was busted for something and thrown into a room and left, and she started going through the files. And she found pictures of this area, and they would she said, well, your picture was there, and there was an arrow pointing to him, and it said Terry with a question mark. I guess they didn't know what I did or who I was. But they had other people too, like, oh, this is Jim, he deals pot and stuff like that. The reason I'm bringing this up is, if you could get access to some of those pictures, you would have pictures of downtown Kent that nobody else has.
Wow.
With the people on the streets. And
this is after the shooting?
After what?
After the May 4th shooting?
Yes.
Yeah, and they were...
Wait a minute. You know what? I'm not really sure.
That's interesting.
Because things were flourishing at that time anyway. It could have been before May 4th.
Did you feel that there were, police, either you saw people in the audiences, a lot of people talk about being...
Oh, I know some of their names. Paul Petrella was the head of the narcotics thing in Kent at that time. Oh yeah, we knew about it.
And they were in at the performances, you know?
Well, they were incognito. You couldn't spot one.
But they also weren't arresting anyone.
No, they weren't arresting anyone.
They knew, you know, people were, if they were smoking pot or whatever, as long as drinking, nobody was busting anybody for IDs.
No, but they were putting feelers out to see who was selling and that sort of thing. You know, hey, you know where I can get a lid? Or that kind of thing, you know. And, oh yeah, Jimbo always has stuff. And then so they would go look over at Jimbo or something.
I have to ask this question. How did you get the name, the numbers back?
It's from a book called, I don't know, I have to find out from Bob. But anyway, this is from in the 1930s in Chicago, around the South Side. The numbers racket, they would do 3 sets of numbers, and it was like win, place, and show, like a horse race. And at the time, a lot of people used this book of dreams. Okay, and they would look up their dream and go, oh, I had dream 15, and they would, well, anyway, the combination of 15, 60, 75, all those dreams were phallic, okay? And so the number was known as the Big Dick. And when the numbers guys would come around, they go, hey, my neighbor, what do you want today? Put me on the Big Dick. And they'd write down 15, 60, 75. Now, we had to tailor that a little bit because you can't tell your grandmother about the Big Dick, you know? And so we had all these stories made up like, oh, it's fertilizer. It's 15, 60, 75, it's very high in nitrogen or something. We made all this stuff up, you know. But
No.
that's the original story.
So were the other guys at Kent State, or were all you guys working, or how was that going? I mean, the original band.
I think I was the only person going to school.
You were the only person going to
Yeah.
school. And then you weren't going to school, you were working full-time on the band.
Yeah.
Yeah. So all these years, time's going by, and the bar scene did change downtown.
It was in continual change. Things changed a lot after May 4th. There was no question about it. There was an uptightness and there were things going on. It just never was the same again. It just changed everything. If you could get one of those pictures, you would see what it was like at that time. I mean, every night you go down there, almost except Sundays, and it was like a circus. There were people on the streets everywhere. It was fun. I mean, if nothing else, you could just go down and sit and talk to somebody. But after that, things started changing. And all those little stores started disappearing. And there were stores all over, Legendary Leather and Cucumber Castle and all these places all over Kent. And they just started disappearing a little at a time. And there was a big blight there for a while. Now, our band was still cooking along pretty good, just because we had a nice following. But it was tough for other bands at the time.
You did have a following, and that following sort of became almost a cult.
Yeah, well, that's probably a good word for it. I mean, you know, we played at the Heritage Festival down here at the Venice, which is an odd thing to go all the way around. Played at the Venice, and you know, I make a joke about this all the time, but it's not a joke. People come in wheelchairs and walkers to hear the band because they were down at the Cove, you know, and now they have a bad leg or
They can't walk.
they can't walk.
Did the band aspire to make it beyond Kent as a recording band?
Yes and no. We were young, you know, we were in our early 20s, and you know, the stars were there like, oh man, we could go out and be like Eric Clapton or something. So we were thinking about it. And then the more we got into people coming down to hear us, they were telling us we had to do things that we didn't want to do. Well, you know, you're going to have to change your dress. You know, we can't use that kind of music. You're going to have to, And we didn't want to do that. And so, and I'm very, very happy because I like the life and the times that went through all that. And I am so happy we didn't make it because I'd be dead. I would certainly be dead from some sort of drug overdose. I have no doubt about it because seeing my sister and what she has to go through on the road, that's just, to me, it's a horrible life.
Yeah.
You know, she loves it. You know, she's going strong. But I would never ever have I probably would have liked it
At one point.
at one point, but now I'm happy that it never happened.
At one point, you went to New York. You left the band and you went to New York and then you came back.
Oh, I didn't leave the band. The whole band went to New York. We played there a couple of times. In fact, here's a story that I don't know if it's true or not, but it's a good story. We played at this club uptown New York called Trax, Trax, and it was a very hip. It was the hip place at the time. Like the Rolling Stones had come down, and all these people from Saturday Night Live would come down like this, and Belushi and all them. And we're playing there, and the announcer comes on, and he didn't know much about us, but Jack was with the band at the time, and it was Bob and Jack. And the announcer comes on and goes, "Here's a band called the Numbers Band. We'll just say it's the Blues Brothers."
Oh.
Whoa.
Now, I don't know if you know, Belushi or somebody was down there going, "Hey man, that's kind of a good idea." I don't know.
Right.
But it's a good story anyway.
It's a good story. Yeah. So you're staying all these years. The band is here, but you were living in Kent all those years?
Never left. No.
Why?
I never had any reason to leave. If somebody had said, "Hey, we can go over and do this," and I might have done that, but nobody ever did. And I loved Kent. I absolutely loved Kent. I loved old Kent. You know, I remember when all those neat stores, the smoke shop and all that stuff before the corner burned down and everything.
Yeah, that
And
was-
we were coming home from a gig one night and drove through town and went, "Holy mackerel, the place is on fire." But I just really loved old Kent, the funky places and stuff, but they're gone.
Now, it was very obvious that there were certain bars, like down towards the Fairchild Bridge, there was a biker bar. I mean, certain bars attracted certain people.
Right, that was Joe and Ann's, the biker bar there.
And then there were other, there were bars that were towny people.
Oh, yeah, Wise's, do you remember Wise's bar? No, nobody remember Wise's. It was down where like a Rodney bookstore is, right there. It was an old man's bar. In fact, when I came to down, Ray's was an old man's bar. You'd go in there and they had the jute boxes on each table that had a loud, medium, and soft buttons on them, and you could listen to Cannonball Adderley in Ray's. I mean, it was really cool. Of course, once the kids started getting into it, that was a different thing. And here's another thing that goes along with the music scene in Kent. At around that time, and you could look it up and find the year, that white building that's still there became the grad student painting building.
I worked there.
Okay, you worked there, you know what I'm talking about. Lucas was there, all those people worked in that place. And when it was time to go to lunch, they would all get together and they would go to the nearest place to have a burger and a beer, and that was Orville Seavers, which was right next door.
That's right.
And so the grad students started going over there, and people would come in and see these hip cats sitting around saying, "This is kind of a cool place." And pretty soon, it became the place. You know, it was like Studio 54 of Kent. You know, you went, and then Walter Horvath took it over, and it became Walters.
Right.
And of course, that added to the music scene. We were playing upstairs at JB's at the time. We had moved up there, and the overflow from Walters would come in, and they would go downstairs and hear band. I went down on a break and saw Henry Rollins down there with Black Flag. I mean, it was really. Alice Cooper played there, and oh yeah, and with our band at the Cove, we brought so many famous blues musicians and Hound Dog Taylor and Sun Seals, and I mean the list goes on and on of all these great blues players that played right down in Kent, right between 1970 and 1975-6 when the bar burned down for the first time, when the Cove burned down for the first time, which is an interesting story. I suppose it's not going to hurt to say this, even though I don't know it for sure. But at the time, for some reason, our drummer, David Robinson, at the time,
Right.
stayed over one night to practice his drums, and he was supposed to lock the place up. Well, Petrie came in and lacquered all the walls of the place to make it look nicer. And when David left, he forgot to turn the furnace on.
So, yeah.
And we don't know for sure, but that could have been the cause of the fire. And that was in 76, was it? Or 75, 76? I can't remember. And the thing is, the fire didn't destroy the building. All the structure, these big beams they made these things out of, they were all intact. And it was completely rebuildable. And then a second fire happened. And they saw somebody leaving that looked a lot like a person that we know that could have owned the place.
That's the story.
But that's not for sure at all.
Okay.
But anyway.
There were buildings burning, the block. When you think about it, renewal in Kent was fire.
Yes, yeah, Hans too, wasn't it then Hans burn?
Yeah. Same thing,
Yeah,
one after the other particularly on one.
right. And of course, after the Cove went, that put a big dent in things, but then we went next door upstairs, the Joe Bujak, very happy. Good shit over here, we have good, and we were packing the place for a long time upstairs, JB's. I'm sure you guys were there.
Oh, all the time.
Yeah.
It was good. It was a good
You
time.
can't believe how many people I know that said, come up and they go, I met my wife there. I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah. So what is it like now, almost 50 years later? You guys are still playing. You've gone through, you have 3 original members, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's it like now in 2019 for you?
Well, there were some bleak times as far as I was concerned up to the last couple of years. I was drinking a lot. I drank at every gig. It was just part of the thing. And we were playing some really bad gigs, which caused me to drink even more. I mean, we'd play in these clubs where nobody really wanted to hear us. I don't know how we got the gig there or anything. And things started changing. We said, well, we got to get good gigs and not get these bad gigs. And so things started changing. We started getting better gigs. And it became more enjoyable later on. I can't give you a year, but in the last 5 years or so, it became much more enjoyable to play. You were doing it more for fun.
Yeah.
Although we just played 4 gigs in a row or something, and I'm telling you what, it ain't an older man's thing. I mean, I get done, I don't drink, I don't do anything. We'll get done with the gig, and the next day I wake up and I feel hungover. I'm all beat up, my back hurts from carrying equipment, and I'm going, what the hell is this? This isn't right. But we're still doing it. And it's kind of tough.
What has the effect, or has there been effect, on the music scene by having the Kent stage here? Is that change?
I don't see it affecting the music scene in town because there really isn't a music scene in town anymore.
Yeah.
There's the Water Street Tavern and there's the Venice, and that's about it.
Yeah.
I mean, there used to be live music venues everywhere. Mothers and the bands were playing all over the place. So I think the Kent stage is really cool. They've just had some great acts in there, and I'm really happy that that's working and everything. But I don't think it's really affected the music scene
Right.
that much.
Well, it would be nice to see more live music.
Oh, yeah, yeah. You gotta have the audience, you gotta have the market, and who's our band like ours, who are we gonna draw? We're drawing the people with the wheelchairs and the walker. And once in a while, a 19-year-old will come in stoned and go, hey man, that's pretty cool, yeah, that's nice, but we're not really getting a whole lot of new people. And here's the thing too, we played at JB's up for all through the 80s up into the 90s. And how many students are up? 30,000 students, somewhere in that area. And a whole lot of them on their weekends would come down and go through JB's. And this was year after year after year. And we have fans all over the country that still look back and go, like on Facebook, I'll read these things, and, oh yeah, I was down there and blah, 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 blah. And so that's kind of neat because there's all these people that remember us and know us. But I don't know what the original question was anymore.
Did you ever go to Europe to play?
Yes. We played twice in Europe. And the last time was at the Royal Festival Hall, which is, you know where the Eye is? The big Ferris wheel.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like almost like right across the street from there. And it's a big deal. It's like, and my sister and her kids came down to hear us. And I didn't even know this. There's people after the show milling around. And John Paul Jones from Led Zeppelin was there, but I didn't know what he looked like. I mean, I wanted to go play pool snooker down at one of the bars. I left right away, so I'm going to go.
Was it a good experience?
Yeah, it was a real good experience. It was great. It was really a good experience.
Yeah, that's really, of course, you've had this wonderful life here. In a parallel universe, your sister has had also a different career.
Right.
I mean, it's interesting, both of you are musicians.
Right. My dad bowled a lot, and he bowled with Resnick, Judy Resnick's father. Okay, and
The astronaut.
yeah.
Yeah.
And my dad said, what does your daughter do? And he goes, well, she's an astronaut. And he goes, wow, cool. He goes, what do your kids do? And he goes, well, my daughter's a rock star and my son's a musician.
That's